People of Uganda, youth of Africa, comrades, they have given you a number today. They say 75%. They expect you to bow your heads to this number as if it were the word of God. But we know that in the shadows of an internet blackout, numbers are not counted. They are manufactured. How can a leader claim 75% of the heart of a nation while he cuts the tongue of that nation? How can you celebrate a victory when your opponent sits under the boots of the military in his own home? I have seen that the old men who cling to power do not fear the ballot, they fear the awakening. They think that by stealing a victory, they can steal a future. But the spirit of Thomas Sankara is not found in a rigged box. It is found in the courage of a generation that refuses to be lied to anymore. Today, we do not look at the tally centers in Kampala. We look at the streets. We look at the truth that no decree can silence. Listen carefully, because the era of the permanent president is facing its sunset. They are telling you that President Museveni has taken more than 75% of the vote, that he is far ahead of Bobi Wine, and that Uganda should simply move on. But Africa, whenever numbers look too perfect in a climate of fear, blackout, and blood, a responsible person must say, look again, look closely, and ask what those numbers are hiding. I am not here to announce who really won Uganda's election. That is for Ugandans to decide, with evidence and courage. I am here to talk about what the whole continent can see. An election held under internet shutdown, with opposition supporters reporting intimidation, with at least several people losing their lives, while results showing one man cruising towards another term are read on television. When you say a leader has around 3/4 of the vote in a country where almost all the youth are hungry for change, the question is not only is it legal, but is it legitimate in the eyes of the people watching from their small rooms, their phones, their crowded streets? That is the question Uganda is forcing Africa to confront tonight. Before you even look at 75%, look at the conditions under which that 75% is being announced. Days before Ugandans voted, the internet was switched off nationwide, social media went silent, and even satellite options were restricted, cutting millions off from independent information and live reporting. Soldiers and heavy security were deployed in key areas, especially where the opposition is strong, and reports spoke of arrests, intimidation, and restrictions on gatherings. When I see an election wrapped in a digital blackout and guarded by armed fear, I cannot pretend it is an ordinary contest between two equal players. Information is oxygen for democracy. When you cut it, you do not just turn off phones, you turn off transparency. This is why many young Africans instinctively question any landslide that happens in silence. They have seen this movie before. Shutdowns justified in the name of stopping misinformation, while the real counting happens where cameras cannot see and citizens cannot stream. So when you hear that one candidate is already cruising at over 70% while his main rival is surrounded and offline, understand why the continent is asking not just who won, but how was this victory produced? As these early results roll in, the headlines say, Museveni takes a strong lead, over 75% of the vote, dominates the race. But in the same breath, those reports quietly add another line. At least 7 people have lost their lives and others are injured in clashes between security forces and opposition supporters after the vote. Whenever I see a scoreboard going up while the human cost rises in the streets, I do not clap, I ask questions. When families are mourning and ambulances are moving while one man is already being presented as the overwhelming winner, something is broken in the relationship between power and people. What message does it send to Uganda's young generation and to Africa's youth when peaceful participation, monitoring, and criticism appear more dangerous than staying silent at home? An election result that arrives with this level of tension may be called a win on paper, but in the hearts of many observers, it will always carry a question mark. Now look at the picture clearly. Early results show President Museveni above 75%, cruising with more than 3/4 of counted votes, while Bobi Wine sits below 20%. At the exact same moment these numbers appear on the screen, Uganda's main opposition leader is reported to be effectively under house arrest, his home surrounded by security forces, access roads blocked, his movement and communication heavily restricted. This combination concerns me deeply. One candidate moving freely on state media as the symbol of stability, the other watched by armed officers in his own compound in the name of order. When the referee, the pitch, and the loudspeakers all belong to one side, people will naturally question any result, even if some parts of it are accurate. For the youth of Africa, this is the image that will stay. A president of 4 decades reading comfortable numbers, and a younger challenger confined to his house, with his supporters worried outside. No matter how carefully officials speak about security, security measures, many will feel that Uganda's election night looked less like a level playing field and more like a contest managed from one center of power. Uganda is a country where the median age is around 17, yet the man leading with more than 75% of the vote has been in power for about 40 years and is now over 80. In the same race, his main challenger, Bobi Wine, is in his early 40s and has built his message around youth frustration, unemployment, and the dream of a new Uganda. This is the question I know millions of young Africans are quietly asking. In a country where most voters were not even born when a leader first took office, is it believable that nearly 3 out of every 4 votes go back to the same person again? Yes, there are young people who genuinely support President Museveni and credit him for roads, schools, and stability. Their voices exist and must be respected, but there is also a huge crowd of educated, online, job-seeking youth who feel locked out and have rallied around figures like Bobi Wine as symbols of generational change. When early results show such a wide gap between continuity and change, it might be legally recorded. But in the minds of many young Africans watching from outside, it will sound less like a choice and more like a system repeating itself yet again. Some will answer, but Captain, there are observers. The Electoral Commission accredited over 1,000 local and international monitors. Regional bodies like the EAC and AU sent missions. So surely a 75% result must be trustworthy. Observation is important, and those who risk their time to watch the process deserve respect. But even observers admit that when internet is cut, media is restricted, and opposition is squeezed, there are limits to what they can truly see. I say this with caution. A badge and a report do not automatically turn a tense, heavily managed contest into a genuine festival of choice. Many analyses already described Uganda's 2026 vote as managed continuity, an exercise designed to keep the same leadership in place under the appearance of routine democracy. When human rights groups talk about repression and intimidation in the same breath as they mention the ballot, any observer statement must be read alongside those warnings. So, when you are told, don't worry, there were observers, remember this: even the best camera cannot capture what happens in the dark, and no mission can substitute for a people who feel truly free to choose. That is the deeper test Uganda is facing tonight. Tonight, the official message to Uganda's youth is simple: calm down, accept the results, go home. But beneath that message, another, louder one is being heard across Africa's phones and group chats. If even a massive youth wave around Bobi Wine still ends with 75% for the same leadership, can elections alone really change anything? This is what worries me most. Every time a highly anticipated vote ends under blackout, heavy security, reports of repression, and a near-automatic victory for the incumbent, trust in the ballot box erodes a little more. Young people from Kampala to Nairobi, from Lagos to Dakar, are already asking whether their energy is better spent organizing peaceful change, or simply preparing to survive whatever the system decides. Uganda is not just choosing a president, it is shaping how a whole generation across Africa feels about democracy. If elections start to look like carefully managed rituals rather than real contests, then the streets, the hashtags, and other, less controlled arenas will become the preferred place for youth to express their power. And that is a path no responsible leader should want to normalize. In every interview, you hear the same sentence: President Museveni has brought stability to Uganda. For some citizens, this feels true. They remember darker years before him. They see roads, hospitals, and schools, and they say, he kept us alive. He kept the country together. Their experience must be acknowledged with respect. Another question must also be asked: stability for whom, and at what price for the youth? If stability means the same leadership for nearly 4 decades, limited space for opposition, internet shutdowns during elections, and a nervous economy that struggles to absorb millions of young job seekers, then many will not call that peace. They will call it a lid on a boiling pot. Across Africa, leaders love to say, I am protecting the gains. But young people ask, if the gains are real, why are we still one shock away from unrest? Why do we need soldiers, blackouts, and fear every time we vote? A stability that depends on silence is fragile. The only stability that lasts is the one built on trust, and trust cannot be commanded by 75% on a screen. It must be earned in the daily lives of the people. From Ouagadougou, Kampala does not look far. It looks like a mirror, an aging leader asking for yet another term in the name of stability, a younger challenger speaking the language of frustrated youth and protest vote, institutions that talk about democracy while the playing field clearly leans to one side. I say this: Uganda's election is not just Uganda's story. It is is a chapter in a wider African pattern where elections too often become rituals that confirm the same order instead of real opportunities to reset it. Across the continent, people see this and quietly conclude that ballots alone, without deep reforms, will not deliver the dignity they were promised at independence. This is why my voice enters this conversation, not to tell Ugandans what to do, but to remind Africa that legitimacy is more than numbers. A result that looks impressive on paper, but leaves half the youth feeling invisible, will not calm the storms of this century, whether in Uganda or anywhere else. Power that leans only on security forces and procedures, without the genuine confidence of its young majority, is strong today, but fragile tomorrow. Everyone is busy repeating the headline, Museveni leads with over 75%, heading for a seventh term. But as Ibrahim Traore, the number that interests me more is not 75, it is 40. Around 40 years in power, and still no clear, trusted answer to one simple question. After Museveni, then who? Analysts say this election is clouded by succession questions, that another term may only delay a hard reckoning over who takes the steering wheel of Uganda when the current driver finally steps down. His son, General Muhoozi, is already a powerful figure, leading a civic movement and rising fast inside the system, while rumors of a family handover continue to circulate even as officials deny any coronation plan. From the outside, many Africans see this and worry. Is the continent watching an election or the slow preparation of a dynasty wrapped in the language of stability and experience? A 75% victory without a transparent, inclusive succession roadmap does not solve Uganda's future. It postpones the storm, and every year that passes without clarity makes that future test more fragile, not less. My young brothers and sisters across Africa, do not watch Uganda only as spectators of another man's drama. Watch it as a lesson in what happens when a very young society is governed by a very old political formula, heavy security, controlled institutions, and elections that look more like confirmation ceremonies than real choices. Analysts now describe Uganda's vote as a struggle not just about policies, but about legitimacy, about whether power is something people truly consent to or something they simply learn to live with. That question is not Ugandan alone. It is the same question Kenyan, Nigerian, Senegalese, Burkinabe, and many other youths are asking each time they line up under the sun, vote, and then see results that feel disconnected from the mood in their streets. My message is simple. Do not let disappointment turn into despair. Let it turn into organization, stronger movements, smarter monitoring, deeper civic education, and tougher demands for independent institutions. Uganda's 75% headline will fade. The real story that must remain is this. Africa's youth are taking notes, and the next decade will be written by those who learned from these moments, not those who ignored them. To President Museveni, if these results stand and you are confirmed again, remember that history will not judge you only by how many times you won, but by the condition in which you leave Uganda when you finally step away. A victory announced during blackout, tension, and loss of life is not a finish line. It is a warning light on the dashboard of your legacy. To Bobby Wine, your safety, your voice, and your discipline now matter more than ever. Many young Africans see in you not perfection, but a mirror of their own hunger for respect and renewal. Whether you choose legal challenges, civic mobilization, or patient rebuilding, avoid any path that throws your people into pointless danger while strengthening the very system you criticize. To Africa's youth, Uganda is not the end of the story. It is another chapter in a long struggle to make elections real, institutions honest, and power accountable to those it claims to serve. As Ibrahim Traore, my final word is this: do not surrender your belief in peaceful, organized change. But also, do not be naive about systems that fear your voice. Study them, expose them, out-organize them, and one day, quietly, you will replace them. Africa, listen carefully. Uganda's election is not a movie you watch and forget. It is a warning and an invitation at the same time. A warning about what happens when power leans more on control than on trust. An invitation to a new generation to decide whether it will accept this script or write another one. My final word is this: do not let this 75% headline turn into 100% hopelessness in your heart. Let it push you to register, to vote, to monitor, to join parties or build new ones, to learn the laws, to defend the spaces that still exist, and to demand new ones where they do not. Real change is not one miracle election. It is a long battle of organization, ideas, and courage. To the youth of Uganda and the continent, your future will not be gifted by any president, including me. It will be built by your discipline, your unity, and your refusal to normalize fear. One day, when another country votes under open skies, without blackouts, with leaders who accept losing, you will remember nights like this and say, that is when we decided enough was enough. To the leaders who think they have won, remember that a throne built on silence is a throne built on sand. You can switch off the internet, but you cannot switch off the hearts of 20 million young Africans. You can occupy the tally centers, but you cannot occupy the truth. To the youth of Uganda and to every African child watching this, do not let their numbers deceive you. Do not let their threats make you small. A slave who cannot assume his own revolt does not deserve to be pitied, but a generation that stands together in dignity and in truth is a generation that can never be defeated. We are writing a new history now. A history where the people are no longer puppets and the presidents are no longer masters. The sun is setting on the era of the permanent president. The dawn belongs to us.